engagement, but also of psychosocial skills. With the preponderance of teaching and learning in the virtual space and the options of self-directed learning, the high esteem and relevance accorded to teachers has waned, unfortunately. And in some environments, it has gone to a new low. However, it is known that one of the greatest predictors of student outcome is teacher engagement. The teacher, therefore, still deserves a pride of place on the education sector medal podium. Education prepares teachers not just for the limited jobs associated with the scope of their training, but should instead position them to function successfully in diverse professions in various fields. The training of teachers must encourage a culture of success, not just for the teachers themselves, but also for the classrooms which they will manage and the students who will be in their charges. In an era of new and shifting values, as educators, we cannot rest on our laurels. As the goals posed are shifting and the targets are moving, we do not know what tomorrow's target will be, but it's in our best interest and in the interest of those we serve, as well as the wider sector, to be ready for those changes. There is truth in the notion that an educated society is a prosperous, peaceful, and progressive society. As educators, we have a major role to play in the tone of our environments and in the classroom. And this will in turn have a ripple effect on the wider society. Even with great focus on things of economic value, the importance of the educator cannot be overlooked. So like you, I look forward to an engaging discussion, and the panel discussion will engender, and more so, the effects it will have with the education, in the education system and beyond. I greet you well this afternoon, and I look forward to an enchanting evening of fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Next on the program is Dr. Mark Nicely, Secretary General, the Jamaica Teachers Association. It's not online? Okay, and he's not in the audience, so we'll move on. So, at this time, I'm going to welcome our very charming and talented Miss Dorrit Campbell, who will now lead the rest of the session.
I'll answer to the talented part, but I don't know about the charming part. I'm becoming a crafty old woman. Dr. Pino can tell you more about the craftiness. My brothers and sisters, good afternoon to all of you. I don't see all of you in the lecture theater, so I'm going to make the assumption that most of you would be online, and I hope that there are some others coming from work at 5 o'clock to join us in the next 15 or so minutes. But this week is Education Week, thanks to the vision of the Jamaica Teachers Association, who is partnering with the MOSA in this particular activity this evening. It's another Education Week being observed in a context of our school system becoming, perhaps it's not present continuous, but absolute perfect tense. Our school system has become a social battleground, a physical battleground, mental battleground, and some of the atrocities that seemingly go on in our immediate teaching and learning environment, some of you would not begin to even think about or know or imagine. Where I sat in the Ministry of Education, I would have had to deal with some of the things. You may see the most visible ones, like the fighting between teachers and students, teachers and teachers, teachers and principals, and all of that. But Dr. Smart may tell you about others that come to him that he can't talk about here. And I myself would have probably referred some there. But a whole lot of things going on, and we have cause to be concerned. Serious cause to be concerned. Makes no sense we argue about how the education ministry has failed us. Education is everybody's business. And for some reason, other than the academics, the change in behavior that education is supposed to wrought has not been happening. Why? And it's not for want of putting resources in the system. We play the resource game sometimes because we are helpless. And we say we need more resources and we need more resources. But what kind of resources do we need? That's another question that we need to answer. Where do we need those resources? And how do we have the machinery, the human machinery, to maximize use of whatever cognitive or social or psychosocial resources we may need? Whatever it is, something is wrong with the pool. Something is not right in our school system. And I'm not saying the education system, I'm saying something is not right in our school system. And it is as a result of the awareness that something has gone radically wrong that I believe the MICO Alumni Association, I grew up in the era of MICO Old Students Association, and I claim that. I believe it is in that context that the MICO Old Students Association has decided to partner with the Jamaica Teachers Association and to explore in a meaningful way what might have gone wrong. What I do like about the way the topic has been framed, it has made use of what I call appreciated inquiry. Instead of harping on the negative, it has framed itself in a way to look at what we can do positively. How can we build on the possibilities? How can we build on the strengths which are there, rather than the usual cliched acne about all of the negatives? And I like that, and I think Dr. Smart will like this take on it, to him being a transformist, right? So instead of getting a negative frame here, or looking at it from a negative prism, it says creating a more conducive classroom environment. I have redefined that to state creating a more conducive teaching and learning environment. Hopefully we are not just focusing on one side of the interaction in the classroom, but we are looking at the dynamics between teacher and students and what goes on there, rather than just students' behavior. So this is a topic we debate or we explore this afternoon, and I have some able-bodied and able-knowledged persons to so do, yes, and they have a good amount of time in which to so do it, Dr. Pinnock. I think each speaker has 15 minutes and Dr. Smart has 20. That's a good amount of time that we're working with. So I don't know that I need to emphasize, don't go over the time. But I did warn you at the beginning that I am crappy, talented but crappy. So if you are going way over the time, you know that I'll butt in somewhere and ask you a question to remind you that you need to wrap up now. But the thing here is that we are not so rigidly time-bound, because, as Reverend Mullins had said in his prayer, we're not just here to talk through things, but we are looking for solutions. We are looking for strategies that we can transfer that other persons can use that perhaps the education ministry can explore as well. So it's not just talk for social talk purpose, but the kind of dialogue that should continue beyond the walls of the lecture theater and beyond the virtual space that is YouTube or Zoom. So it is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce you to the panelists. And I am not going to introduce everybody all at once and then they come up and talk to you. I am going to start first with Miss Angelica Dalrymple. She's a first-class honors graduate with a diploma in teacher education and a degree in guidance and counseling from the Michael University College. She's earned a master's degree in applied psychology from the University of the West Indies and currently serves as a teacher of health psychology and guidance and counseling, even while serving as president of the Jamaica Association of Guidance Counselors in Education. With over 14 years of experience in the education system, she's worked at both the secondary and the tertiary levels, as well as in the education ministry. As an experienced guidance counselor, she's skilled in grief and trauma counseling behavior, behavior change techniques, coaching, entrepreneurship, and family counseling. Ms. Dalrymple also has special skills in research, presentation, consultancy, program evaluation, program monitoring and evaluation, career development, and psychological assessment. And she has facilitated quite a number of workshops and seminars in those areas. She's also an author, but she didn't tell me what she has written, and an international inspirational speaker, so you can ask her afterwards. And this afternoon, she's going to share her experience in the school system and her interpretation of those experiences. So may I now invite you to direct your attention to the screen where we will have Ms. Dalrymple's presentation. Giving you 30 seconds to get it on the screen, and then I'm going to move on. Okay, I was told that you had the presentation that you would have projected on the screen, but if Ms. Dalrymple is here, she still needs to get online and do the presentation.
Important topic. Yes. To lead. Thank you so much for such a warm introduction. I really appreciate it. Grounding in Michael. Yes, I am. And it's a pleasure for me to be sharing in this interesting and important topic. Yes. To lay the foundation as it relates to the conduciveness of the classroom, it's just far-reaching. It's a whole lot, but let's start with a little. First, we should be reminded of the purpose of the classroom. And the purpose of the classroom, as we know, is a teaching, learning environment. And that, I would repeat, it's also far-reaching because it's not just academic, as some people believe, just a subject area. Social, intellectual, feelings, everything are learned in the classroom. And as we know that there is a relationship in the classroom and communication. These two words are dynamic. They are key to classroom conduciveness. And whether or not they are done in an effective way, they are the major players in classroom. So when we think of classroom conduciveness and how we can improve the conducive classroom, then we must think about these: communication and relationship. Now, as it relates to communication, it's not just verbal. We know about the nonverbals. We know about even the messages that are sent that are not purposeful in the context of the teaching environment. And when I say that, what I mean is that they are not academic material, as some people think that the classroom is just for academic. So we want to talk about the things that are not being considered as much as they should. And as a guidance counselor and also representing JAGC, which is the Jamaica Association of Guidance Counselors in Education, I want to run to the affective domain, because too many times this aspect of the classroom is left behind. It is not being considered much, and this is where we find that it is a driver to learning, because if students are not thinking right, if they are not feeling good, if their emotions are down, which we have a lot of that, then we know that it is going to be negatively impacting the learning environment, the teaching and learning environment. Now, we know that in the classroom, we have the teacher who is the authority figure and the students who we would regard them as the subjects. However, it should be a relationship of teacher-student relationship. But some students view it differently. Perceptions of student, they see it as authority versus students, you know, and because of that, there sometimes are conflict, and many times it is born out of the teachers not understanding the learners, because communication in the classroom takes different forms. Sometimes students may come sleeping in the classroom. They may be angry. They may be angry from home. Some of them may be hungry on their way to school. They have all kind of challenges, confluences of factors that have been affecting them or society on a whole. And as we know, the Bronfen-Bremer theory, as it relates to the ecological system, they are affected by it in many ways, especially in Jamaica. We understand that the culture, the society, you know, has imposed so many negative things on our children. Some of them would have seen their parents being cut down. Some of them are cut down, you know, mentally, emotionally by their parents. Not only parents, but their peers, the bullying and all kind of things, the kind of mass media that goes on, the bullying on the internet and all kind of things. You know, technology has also impacted them in a negative way, and then they would come into the classroom with all of this. And if the teacher is not competent in areas of the affective domain, then you'll recognize that the teacher, him or herself, will be responding in a way that would interfere with good communication. Children start feeling as if they are not being understood. They get really defensive. And you know also that even though I'm not a clinician, but many times students come in with disorder behaviors that are disorders when they are clinically checked, you know, They are not behaviors that are acceptable in a classroom environment. You have so many different things. You have the trauma. Yes, COVID has created a number of challenges too for them. A lot of children are now overwhelmed, want to commit suicide. Many of them will say, and all of this data is gathered from our perspective as counselors too, because we have had many of it. Many of the cases that we have are also from classroom, teacher student kind of thing. They are not being understood. And the point here is they have a real situation, and it doesn't matter the developmental stage of the child. They have real situations that they are dealing with. They're overwhelmed, and it's not their fault. Many of the situations, they have nothing to do with it. Another thing is that they are not seeing academic trajectory as something that is important to them. And that is also, I would say it was fostered more so during COVID, because when they were not in school, some students, many of them just gave up and their grades went down and they feel challenged by not having that high grade again. Some of them are not resilient enough to bounce back. And then you have the stress and the distress and not feeling that they're ready for the world. There are so many things that our children have been going through. Messages in the classroom also are misinterpreted, because when they come in and the behaviors that they display, many times most of the facilitators, or some of them I would say, because I don't have a statistic to say most, so let me say some of them, they do not understand the messages that the children are sending. So some of them personalize the messages, and in personalizing messages, it becomes a conflict in the classroom. So some of these things need to be considered when we are thinking of how we can create and promote a conducive classroom. Many of our students today, they are choosing some of the careers that they think that they don't have to go through school for that. That's what they think. So also, they need to be better aware of their purpose in school. And some will tell you that they're only coming to school because they have to come, their parents send them. They have lost interest. Some students have lost interest, and I think too many of them have lost interest. They feel pressured, they feel misunderstood, fear of peers, the bullying, and sometimes the violence that happen among them. They feel very threatened, and there are a number of things that how they perceive things too, because sometimes it's just their perception, but it affects them in many, many ways. As such, they're always crying out, and the cry comes out in the behaviors, and it's about understanding the learner, not just in terms of how the student learn, but what the student is going through, so that the student can be helped and that the classroom environment can be one that will accommodate the kind of responses that are needed, as in the transactional, I think it's transactional model of communication. That one is also key, because it would share with us how we need to communicate so that the children don't feel like we are speaking to them in condescending ways or we are blaming them, but they can hear our voice, and our voice as if we're valuing them and all of these despite their behaviors, in terms of still helping them to understand better ways of expressing themselves and to get help for them. One major thing that will help the classroom environment to be more conducive is when these challenges are in the classroom, the facilitators partner with the counselors and allow the counselors and encourage the students to see the counselors, so that the counselors can carry out their role in terms of the emotional, social, psychosocial component, and even refer for good. Refer the students so that they can get the professional care that they need. As such, I find this topic A very important one. It is deep. The time is not available to go through many of the areas. But if I should say one thing, emotional intelligence is very important in relationships and understanding the learner, inspiring the learner, and so forth, because our children are going through a lot. Many parents are not falling in line either because they just want the children to get the CXCs and to pass the GSAT and to do all of that. They're not paying much attention. Also, we find that there's a taboo on mental health. Many parents are not paying attention to how the children are feeling. We have cases among us where children have escaped abduction and they are coming to school just the same, taking the same bus, the same taxi and all of that. We need to better empathize and understand that when they come into the classroom, they are going to bring themselves into the classroom. And as such, we have to pay attention to those components, the psychosocial, the mental health, and so forth. Thank you.
For that kickstart there and the issues that you have experienced and related here as a guidance counselor. She spoke to the need to understand the learner and how technology impacts students, traumatic experiences that affect students' behavior. And of course, there have been talks, and she has confirmed that COVID has had its attendant challenges and implications where the students are concerned, and no doubt the teachers too. Students' seeming lack of interest and lack of a sense of direction. How do we get them back? How do we refocus? How do we repurpose them? But these are some of the things that she would have noted from where she sits in a particular school and from her position as the president of the Guidance and Counseling Association in Education. She spoke to the need for effective communication between teacher and the learner, between the parents and children, and among adults, and the importance of emotional intelligence. Dr. Smudge can't overestimate that. Those are some of the issues that she's touched on, teased out a bit, and in our ongoing discussion we'll explore some of those issues further. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce Dr. Leakim Smudge, who is a quantum transformation psychologist. He knew he had a special gift for sharing information when he earned the Distinguished Teacher Award from Cornell University in his first year on the faculty. I paused there because somehow in all my interactions with Dr. Smudge, I never knew he was a teacher. He creates I guess because he didn't come to the mic, that slipped him somehow, and he creates a participatory environment that keeps culturally diverse audiences fully engaged as he demystifies complex concepts that impact people's lives. He combines ancient wisdom with scientifically backed principles to bring fresh insights to old problems, old human problems. And he has a unique ability to impact both kings, queens, paupers, and popes. Dr. Smudge has demonstrable knowledge and skills in social, organizational, and community transformation, raising individuals and organizations to a higher level of motivation and performance. Of course, he's a motivational speaker, creative thinker, problem solver, and an excellent facilitator for change management, leadership training, strategic planning retreats, and organizational restructuring, and I did cut some of that out. Dr. Smudge's remarkable professional journey has been underpinned by a Bachelor of Arts from City College of New York, a Master of Science, and a PhD from Rutgers University. As a lifelong learner, he has earned a postdoctorate certification in educational testing service from Princeton University. So the only place that would have completed him to which he failed to arrive, but he's here today, is the Michael. Dr. Smudge will be helping us to understand the psychosocial impact on classroom climate, and he will also share with us some strategies for coping. Dr. Smudge, I'm looking forward to your presentation. I welcome you to the podium.
Thank you very much. In terms of the time, I'll make sure I just say all protocols observed, because if you went through all the names and things, we'll be here for a very long time. You know, whenever I'm asked to speak, I first have to interpret the question, what I was asked to do, because oftentimes I don't see, it's not me as such. I'm a vessel. You know, I am the agent through which, so there are times I have to almost go round and come back round. Remember you play domino? So you send the deuce to bring the S. Yeah? Right? So that there are times you have to. So I want to just start with my closing statement, which is, in order for us to get significant value from understanding the psychosocial impact on classroom climate and strategies for coping, we must first have the political will to fix the education system. And second, we must put parents at the center of the educational process. You heard it alluded to in the first presentation, but wherever we have Jamaica, we don't like to come out and say what needs to be said. We go round and come round and so on and things. Now, you've heard this wonderful thing that, you know, if you can read this, thank a teacher. Every one of us who have done well or even halfway well, there's a teacher who saw more in you than you saw in yourself. Every single one of us. So I think our teachers have been doing very good, given the circumstances. However, they have basket to carry water. Now, how do I come to this? Our education system is fatally flawed. So no matter how, we can have the greatest teachers in the world, education is like a skyscraper. The primary process is the formal socialization of our children. I said the formal because it started long before and it happens external to that. But what we have been trying to do is to fix the skyscraper from the 5th floor. And there was something at the 10th floor. But if a skyscraper is fatally flawed, sometimes you have to just lick it down and start over again. Have any of you ever had to, when you refurbish a house, and when you start the refurbishing, you realize, no, this is not going to work. You have to lick it down and start over. And the longer we spend to come to that reality, is the worse it's going to get. So let me tell you how I come to this. And I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the psychosocial aspect. But it doesn't make sense we get that if we don't fix the problem. All right? The first book I published when I was research fellow in child development at UWI, this here, child development in the Caribbean. All right? When I started going through all the material we had as a research fellow, the amount of material that are sitting in libraries, student projects, unpublished documents, incredible sources of information. I know this was published in 1984. And let me tell you, from then, what we knew that the average child born in Jamaica was way ahead of a black child born in America. Our maternal mortality rates were way ahead that of maternal mortality rates of black women in America. It is still so today. One of the highest mortality rates, or should I say the lowest, black women in America who don't have black doctors. The system is just so worked against them. So from birth, I got in trouble at UWI for talking about these things. I was the only black faculty member in social and preventive medicine. And I talked about black child development, black children as a primary population. Not in comparison to white. As a primary population. Because if you go by the white child development standard, you want to call our children precocious. Because we're doing the thing forthright. The books that children walk between 12 and 18 months, our children walk between 7 and 10 months. If you're a child not walking at 12 months, you call Obia man. Something dreadfully wrong. Children who live in context in one-room settings, their social development is very advanced. Children who eat out a family pot develop much better than those who get all kind of fancy food from foreign. Because they're, but we can, so I pull together all the information, all right? So from that we know our children start off good. We have no problem, we have no deficits to begin with. My post at UWI was funded by UNICEF. And in working around the Caribbean, I saw something in St. Lucia. And I brought it to their attention and they asked me, could I go and document it? I said, what have I heard about this thing in St. Lucia called the Mothers and Fathers Organization? Well, it's the most powerful developmental, non-government developmental entity in St. Lucia. How it came about? St. Lucia is very heavily Roman Catholic. Huh? Mother's Day was very big. Big Mother's Day celebration. So the fathers get kind of jealous. And the fathers start keep a Father's Day celebration. And so you had this competition. Which one could be bigger? Mother's Day or Father's Day? Mother's Day or Father's Day? And then somebody got the wonderful idea. But why are we competing? Why not just come together and mothers and fathers celebrate Mother's Day and mothers and fathers celebrate. And so they found themselves something called the Mothers and Fathers Association. That became the biggest non-government entity in St. Lucia. What I mean by that, anybody running for public office, you have to go talk to who? The mothers and fathers. Who are the mothers and fathers? Is their children. In one community, there was no mothers and fathers organization in marriage. And this got me in some serious trouble for pointing this out. In Ancillary, the women's movement from the University of West Indies intervened. And when you had this mothers organization, they say, well, mothers is a pejorative word because not every woman is a mother. So they want to change it to a woman's organization. They changed it to a woman's organization. What happened there? The dialectics did not take place. Nothing happened after that. Because if a woman's organization, men are the enemy and children the obstacle. Whereas we're mother, if you say mother, what the next word come out of your mouth? The father, right? So that showed that mother and father together were doing something powerful. I did another project in 1986 where I visited every children's home in Jamaica.
Recording in progress.
Every single one. To identify what was the strength, what was the weaknesses and so on. So we saw the things that worked. By the way, all the private children's homes were at the top. And all the government children's homes were at the bottom. And the government children's home all had more money than the private homes. Number one home was Alpha. Number two was Bosco. That's probably still today. You know, at the bottom, Maxfield Park. Every couple of years I hear somebody say they're going to do something, they're going to save Maxfield Park. Maxfield Park can't save. My recommendation back in 1986 was to bulldoze Maxfield Park. Send home all the children and the faculty. Give the parents, give the teachers the salary same way. because Maxfield Park had 146 children and 90 staff members. You understand me? So if we send home, you go home, you take one child and you take two, all right? So that you get the salary the same way, you know. Maxfield Park was a feeding tree for the whole community. Everybody shopped there. Bulldoze it and start over. But we don't. And you will still hear every day somebody say, we're going to save Maxfield. It can't save. All right? Number 4. I did a project in Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, where I had a sample of 2,500 children. We looked at these children in grade 1, right? We reviewed them, their capacity. We interviewed the teachers. We looked at the teaching strategy. We looked at the developmental things that the preschool centers did. And we looked at where they were before they got to grade 1. Huh? What kind of environment they came from, what were the strategies used there. And we also interviewed parents. 2,500, Jamaica, Antigua, Barbados. You know what was the number 1 predictor of a child's performance? Not the teacher's strategy, not the wealth of the school, but parents' attitude to education. Some of you older people can remember when in Jamaica, Mama and Papa couldn't read and write, but them check homework every night. Huh? No, that don't look right. Do it over. Right? Parents' attitude to education was what set the agenda. 2,500 my sample was. Now, when we look at that kind of data, and we see the data is telling us straight across the board, parents' attitude is the number 1 issue that sets the tone for children's outcome. We're not talking about that at all now anymore. The number 2 would then be the quality, what the teacher does. But remember, by the time the child gets to school, you know, some other things have taken place. You know how I summarize it? Home is the first school. Parents are the first teachers. Anything extra after that is extra lesson. If you come from a home that values education, and your parents, we're not talking about parents' money. My mother didn't go past primary school, nor my father. But when I talk about my father has 1 certificate on him wall from police training school. That's the only certificate he earned in life. All right? But both of his sons have PhD, and both of his daughters have master's degree. Parents who value education. Now, the quality of the school, what have we been doing in Jamaica? We know the things that I'm supposed to do, but if it, just at a glance here, all right, our educational policies have not taken into consideration those 2 critical things. What is required for the development of our children, meaning early childhood education, how it starts off, how we set it. What have we done? Jamal, 1994. If you build Jamal from 1994, by 1980, you're supposed to can disband it, because it's done. We still have illiterate people in Jamaica. We change the name and call it lifelong learning. Huh? We started HEART in 1982. Wonderful program, but it never solved the problem. We still have people who can't get into HEART. The 2 CXC minimum, they can't get into HEART. All right? Then the PATH program 2002, National Education Trust, Early Childhood Commission 2002, National Youth Service 2003, CAP program 2008, right? we keep putting something at the 5th floor, the 6th floor, the 10th floor. But we're not going back to the basic to fix education and to put parents at the center of the process. So by the time it gets to teachers, so we talk about failing schools. It's not failing schools, it's a failing system. When we talk about the number of, look, the Patterson Report 2021, what happened to it? Shelved, as was the Davis Report. Shelved. So until we do those two things, the political will to fix the education system and to design a proper system starting from early childhood. Because you invest properly in early childhood, it takes itself, it runs its course after that. It doesn't work. 55% of the nation's schools is ineffective. Mathematics at grade 4, 24%, well, the boys are behind the girls by about 24 points. So you go across everything, all the indices of the system. So for me, we know the wonderful thing that teachers do, you know, because part of what is not just reading, writing, and socialization. The broadest areas of socialization is what a teacher can pick up on a student. And the student didn't answer the question. And you just know that something is wrong. And you say, can I see you after class? Can I see you after class? And it has been all the way through every single one of us in terms of what the teachers have done. So for me, I would rather, as I said, the issues we have spent billions of dollars on education in Jamaica. And we can spend billions more, but until we bring parents into the center of this thing. You know, it's at grade 6, the amount of parents that turn up for the PTA, and there's an inverse relationship as you go to grade 7, then 8. But then when you get to, when the pass, it jump up again. And then graduation, 200% turn up now, right? Because parents are not part of the process. No, I live this and I believe it and I practice it. I was the one that took my children to school and go back for them after school. If men would understand how powerful this thing is, you know. When I look back, one of my daughters is a Supreme Court judge in New York. She was expelled from 2 schools in Jamaica, by the way. Because she don't take chat from the body, all right? My other daughter is on the faculty of UII. Her PhD is in literature, right? I have another daughter who is, her era is deconstructing, decolonizing education. She does that in New York, and she's a Spanish specialist. Both my sons are entrepreneurs, complete their degree. My other daughter, well, she has one more final exam on Thursday for law school. Because that's what parenting does. That's what parenting does. In Jamaica, we have a model, it's a goat kid model of parenting. The parents are allowed to leg them children in the morning time and send them to school. I hope them come home all right. We send them to school without any breakfast or nothing. And we put the burden on teacher. You know, one of the first thing I did when I was research fellow in child development, back in the early 80s, I had to make sure preschools, teachers, and understood that half of the homes in Kingston in the 80s did not have flush toilet. Did you know that, folks? So when children come to school and have your fancy toilet, and you send a child to the bathroom, and you go in there after and you're shocked to see what the child did on the floor, in the basin and thing. Day one, carry the picnic or the bathroom and show them how toilet work. It's that basic. It's that basic. So we're saying that the burden that's on teachers, teachers have been doing an incredible job. You know how you can see this? Once them get a visa and them go away, them bust will like baby kite. Huh? Because their capability is such. So in the question and answer, we can talk about some of the specific things, how we enhance that. But if the real issue in all of this, we have an educational system that is broken. We're throwing money away because we're not getting value for money. We're trying to, every time, if you notice that all the things we put in, they're political things to get vote the next election. Yeah. Heart was one of the first example. Yeah, man, they will vote for the next election. So we now have heart program that people graduating from, you can't use the word graduating. People leaving high school can't even get into heart. Huh? So we're saying we fix that. And then the issue of parenting. Home is the first, you know, I did the strategic plan for the national, for the, what do you call this, the health, National Health Fund. For the first 6 years of National Health Fund, I did a strategic plan. And the first motto that National Health Fund had was to ameliorate the cost of health care. From year one, I changed that. I said, no, we can never, ever find enough money to do that. Your health is your responsibility. We have to get people to stop getting sick. We have to get people to start taking more responsibility for their health. Prevention, if we don't start with that. So that same with parenting. Home is the first school. Parents are the first teachers. Anything after that is called extra lesson. Thank you.
And dead on time too. Well, perhaps I should say live on time. Not a minute over. So the education system is fatally flawed. I got to whisper that one because there was a time when I was part of that side of the education system. We must first have the political will to fix that system. Don't tinker with the system, bulldoze it. That's a fundamental issue there, problem that we have had. We have been tinkering. And as you said, the whole heap of money that we used to tinker, we could have bulldozed and start over, redesign the system from early childhood care and development to the tertiary sector. And when you redesign that, you must put parents first. Somebody can use that for them political slogan in the next general election coming up. And them sure if we win it. Because what? Parents' attitude to education based on a survey with a sample larger than anyone I've ever heard of used in Jamaica, 2,500 persons, right? Parents' attitude to education is the #1 predictor of students' educational achievement. So we must put the parents first. Yeah, man.
When I did that study with 2005, you check the size of the sample?
Come to the mic.
As I finished the study, I was about to publish it. Jamaica had this major conference on early childhood education.
I remember that one.
DRB Grant, you all know that name?
Yes.
So I called Mr. Grant. Mr. Grant, I have this project I've just completed with 2,500 children, and the data is just incredible. The prediction of performance in grade 1. And he said, yeah, that's good, but we have invited the experts from around the world to come and tell us about it. The Jamaicans will be attending these conferences to learn from the experts. So I said, which one of the expert them have done any assessment with 2,500 Caribbean children? Well, that's beside the point. They are the experts. He died before the conference started. God bless his soul.
And that's another issue that we grapple with. We pay an awful lot. Ignore the in the trench persons who have the tangible, on the ground, in the trench experience, and go for the theorists who come with a generic solution that never ever seem to work because your situation or our situation is contextual and very often unique, and therefore our realities and lived experience are unique. and it takes a thorough understanding, as you remember Angelica had said, an understanding of the learner, an understanding of the context in which the learners learn as well. It takes all of that. Thank you so very much, Dr. Smart. What I want to put to you before I go to the other two panelists, right? Do you think our schools are engaging parents? Oh, maybe I shouldn't just say the schools. Do you think our schools and the education ministry this time are engaging parents the way they ought to be engaging them? Because I think sometimes the attitude has something to do with, me no know, me no understand. And when I go into school, they make me feel, say me no know. They make me feel down. Them talk down to me in a condescending manner. I feel like my student when I go into a school. And I have had that feeling going into a school under this guise. And it wasn't one of them so-called underperforming school too. It was one of top-notch school that my son went to. And I did feel that way until I opened my mouth. So I just try to imagine that the young lady down at Maxfield who got to that school, how she would have felt not being able to open her mouth as I. Do you think we are engaging the parents the way we ought?
Not at all. Not at all. We forget, you know, we forget that we call this thing the Homeschool Association, the Parent Teachers Association. You know, when you understand how this engagement, I have seen that every level. At every level. One of my daughters got a scholarship to a school in Massachusetts. That's a feeder school for Harvard. I mean, all right? So when parents there, you know, I had to fly up to go there and you see once the limousine them, the amount of private plane are flying because half of the children come from around the world, you know. But because those are the kinds of parents coming there, the teachers are on their P's and Q's. Because the ambassador of this, the Oman of this and that. But because to a large extent, historically, our teachers are way above the average parent and often serve the attitude, you know. And many Jamaican parents are afraid to talk to teacher, afraid to talk to bank manager. And so, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about this whole process, but we've got to put that parent at the center of the process.
Thank you so much. They need to empower parents, not in a town hall setting where you make a long statement for 45 minutes and then say, oh, we only have 5 or 10 minutes, Audrey, to take questions. And then the same kind of parents who know differently and whose children are at Rutgers, they're the ones who dominate that kind of a setting. There needs to be empowerment of parents. That's what I'm also hearing from Dr. Smarge. And I want to hasten to add that he's not just talking about his children because he wants to brag. He wants to he's making the point about the difference between taking that kind of intimate, entrenched, intentional interest in students' learning and in the space in which they learn. That is what makes the difference, right? So it could have been another parent, right, who don't have no PhD, who takes that kind of interest, and still their children come out just as Dr. Smarge's children. Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Smarge. And yes, yeah, give him another hand. Just to the point. And I want you to look with me. May I direct your attention to the screen? And let us hear what these two young men, no, well, they're not two young men, one young man and a young girl, from one of our schools. I think it's Jonathan Grant High School. And that's another story that we perhaps need to study, because that principal who is there, he took that school from a school that needed immediate attention and has taken it to where it is now deemed a good school, and so that his students can now participate in a 30-second clip to give some suggestions in terms of what they think is needed in the school system to address some of the atrocities there. Can we hear from those two students from Jonathan Grant High? You have that? Go ahead.
My name is Giovanni Wigan. Under the theme, creating a more conducive classroom environment, where fights, brawls happening between teachers and students, I present to you the following solutions, such as having counseling and mentoring sessions where teachers and students are trained to handle situations both affecting them personally and collectively. Second, I present to you conflict resolution programs where they can also be taught how to diffuse or dismiss fights before they happen. This will help in reducing the time loss in order to part or stop fights happening. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Hilton and I will be giving a few solutions to the issue of fights occurring between students, teachers, and students. My first solution to this disgraceful issue is that mediators such as past students and parents should collaborate together in initiating more effective and consistent mentorship programs for troubled students in violence-prone schools. This could help to transform their minds and somewhat re-socialize these troubled students. Also, it is suggested that the Ministry of Education gets involved in supporting teachers in curbing indiscipline within schools. This could take the form of them providing mentorship classes for these teachers so that they may be more mentally equipped in dealing with these troubled students in schools. These solutions are expected to eliminate fights and the time spent controlling them so that there could be a more conducive learning environment.
Pay attention to mentoring and mentorship, that perhaps teachers need more training or further training, or training, because I'm not so sure they get that, further training in mentoring. And the other young man is also suggesting that students be taught mediation and conflict management skills. What do you think, Natalie? You think those are important in the school system? And since we're thinking about putting parents first, perhaps they need some of those skills too in terms of how they relate to their children at home, because sometimes they're fighting the children too, and the children fight back. So my next presenter is Miss Natalie Robinson, and she's the country manager. So we're coming out of the education system, out of psychological transformation system, and we're going into industry. Ms. Natalie Robinson is the country manager for 3M Jamaica subsidiary and the pricing subject matter expert for Latin America and Canada in 3M. She has 23 years of experience in leading cross-functional and multinational teams in business planning, strategic development, and marketing in the manufacturing and telecommunications industries. Natalie has 14 years of experience as a youth counselor and mind education specialist and is a director of International Youth Fellowship. She holds her Bachelor of Science degree in Management Studies and Economics from UA, an MBA from Clark University in Mass, a postgraduate certificate from Mass Institute of Technology in Systems Dynamics, and she's currently pursuing another master's in International Community Development at Northwest University. She's coming to share with us strategies in creating positive thinking and behavior, not just in the classroom space, not just in the immediate teaching and learning space, but in the first school space and in our social space. Could you help me welcome her as she comes? And Natalie, I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspective on this particular topic. Welcome.
Thank you. So on this side. Presentation. Yes, that's good. Thank you. I don't know if it's projecting, but okay. All right, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so very privileged to be here. I'm so thankful that I've been invited to participate in this panel discussion. I have set my timer, so I'm not on the wrong side of Miss Campbell. So I'm going to start. And, you know, she listed a number of schools that I attended, but I think by association, you know, I'm also a part of the Michael family. My father graduated from the Michael University College in the 1950s, somewhere I think around 1956. So he's always telling me, he's, this graduate, he's a Myconian, and I think that's, so by association. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit about the mind education and creating a positive thinking and behavior. And I want to first start with showing you a couple of numbers that are on the screen. I know the panelists aren't able to see it, but those who are on Zoom and those that are here. In the interest of time, I will not ask you to tell me what these numbers represent, but I won't ask you to guess, but I will share with you. So Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson had said that between 2019 and 2022, 875 major crimes were committed by perpetrators who were between the ages of 15 and 17 years old. Right? And he also mentioned that of those 875, 256 related to breaches of the Firearms Act, along with 79 murders, 66 shootings, and 175 rapes. And there was also a study by UNICEF that was conducted, a situation analysis in 2018, that stated that, there were at least 79% of students, were witness to violence in the home or the community, and 65% of students were bullied. So we can see that we do have a problem that, what we see that is happening in our schools, that is happening in the classroom. But I want to share with you, it's not actually new, but I'm going to share with you something that has worked very successfully in other parts of the world, and that we have also started to implement here in Jamaica, and it's called mind education. So, and this is something that's not only targeted at students. As Dr. Samajo was saying, we also recognize that parents are critical to this whole process. So it's, so it's targeted at students, parents, as well as educators like ourselves. So mind education is what we call the systematic study of the world of the heart and its effect on our actions and behavior. So you may be thinking, world of the heart, what is she talking about? Is she talking about the organ that pumps blood around our body? But I'll explain that in a little bit. It's also a tool that's used in helping people to overcome the problems and issues that they face using this heart that we're going to talk about. And I think most importantly, it's a solution-based system of applying elements of the heart so you can think of the heart as an immune system. So I'm just going to give you a little definition. So you know that we use the word heart in our vocabulary a lot. This person is a softy at heart. This person, the heart of things, and we use that a lot. So when we say heart in terms of mind education, which is one of the main concepts, it talks about this invisible container that's inside a person that contains and supplies the person's emotions, experiences, thoughts, ideas, judgments, and so on, that basically make up their personality and their nature. The thing about it, though, is because it's unlike our physical bodies, it's not something that you can see, something that you can touch, it's not tangible. It's often ignored and neglected. So, with our bodies, we try to exercise or rest. We try to eat well or not. We try to rest or not. And we take care because we can see our physical bodies. But this whole concept of the heart, that invisible container that drives emotions, and then that often also through the heart, it then leads to actions, right? So things don't just start on their own. So that is like the source. So this is one of the fundamental things of this mind education. And as I had mentioned before, it's invisible, right? It cannot be seen, and that's why it's sometimes often neglected. So if you think, I know we have parents in here, when you think of the love that you have for your children, You know, it's something that is, you know, indescribable. It's oftentimes limitless, boundless. You cannot put, you know, it's not confined. It's almost infinite, actually. And all of those emotions are coming from the heart. So when we think of having a healthy mind, we think of mindset education or mind education. So like our bodies need nutrients. We need to eat food to be healthy. We also need exercise, and we also need to rest. So when we think of our hearts, which are interacting with our minds, then we also need this mind education. And the equivalent of exercise for mind education is about challenges. So, you know, when we talk about, especially in this environment that we are now in, you know, there's always a resistance to difficulties and burdens. You know, our young people can't bother, you know, and everything is at their fingertips, you know, with technology. So it has actually created an environment where they don't think as much. You know, I remember growing up, we didn't have cell phones, you know, and so we had to memorize people's telephone numbers. Now, I rely on everything on my cell phone. If I lose my cell phone, I can't remember. The only number I think I remember is my home number. And my parents have had that for over 40 years, right? So there's so many things because of technological advancements have become so accessible, and unfortunately, it has limited the capacity to think. And then finally, the equivalent of rest for the body, for the heart, is trust. You know, as human beings and as student individuals, you know, and youth as well, they need to be able to have an environment of trust, people who they can communicate with and they can exchange. So, you know, when you think about having this plan for lives, right, and students that have a plan for lives, and even as parents as well, when we think of our children, we think of them ensuring that they get a good education, that they can have a career, you know, start their own business, hopefully get married, have children, and so on, you know. And so we create like a blueprint for ourselves and for our children. But then life happens. Life sometimes throws us curveballs, right? When people think of creating plans for their lives, they don't think of getting sick, getting cancer, experiencing the death of a loved one, divorce, failing a class, failing a course. So many different things happen that are beyond our control. And when we think of students, this is and not only just students, but adults, they face these difficulties. But where do they then get the power to overcome these difficulties and then move on? And so when we think of mind education, it talks about giving them that power from the heart to overcome these difficulties. Oftentimes, the natural tendency is to avoid, want to run away, but to have that power to challenge and to overcome. I mean, when we look at society today, unfortunately, that, you know, we have many persons who, not many, but we do have instances of persons who have achieved a lot in society. They have achieved a lot professionally. And overnight, they lose all of that because they have not been able to exercise the necessary control over their desires and emotions. So equally important to learning the academics, the math, the English, the biology, and so on, the ability to control, have that governing of the heart is very important. So mind education has 4 areas, actually 5, I should say. And I spoke a little bit about this world of the heart where, you know, it deals with all the principal patterns and rules that apply to the heart and how it defines a person and their personality. And then we have self-control, right? And its desires and its nature. So you can think of self-control. If you think of a vehicle, a motor car that has an engine, so an engine is very important for a car to go forward, right? But if that car does not have a braking system that is actually stronger than the engine, what will happen? It's going to crash. So you can go very fast, but if you don't have that braking system in place, then you won't want to be in that car. And so desires are like the engine, which are good because it motivates and it drives students and it drives people to do well. But if there's no self-control to keep that in check, or to keep their desires, often if it's a negative desire, then ultimately it causes failure and it causes a lot of disastrous circumstances. And then the other part, the third, is what we call deep thinking. When I look at, I'm a mother of two, right? And my daughter is 19 and my son is 16. And when I look at the interactions that they have, or that I have with them as well, is that oftentimes, especially when they were younger, and note a little bit, is that their first response is normally based on what they feel. So they're faced with a situation, they don't think, they just react on the first level of thought. And that often results in a disastrous end. And I see that in schools with fighting, someone disrespect them or someone, then their first inclination is to probably fight. So with deep thinking, it trains the individual how to think beyond responding based on that first level of thought. Thinking of 1, 2, 3, what will be the consequences and the end result? Looking at it from a different perspective, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So part of that mind education, equips the students to think about that level of thought, that second level and third and fourth level of thought. And then connection and exchange, which is very important, in how to develop deeper connections between parents and child, between teacher and student, between all the relationships that we have. We talk a lot also about conversations. Sometimes the conversations are very surface. Oh, how was school today? How are things? But not getting and not asking those difficult questions. And I think sometimes also as adults, when dealing with students and also as parents dealing with children, we don't want to look vulnerable. So we always want to probably put a certain, image. But actually exposing our hearts and being in a vulnerable position can allow that connection and that exchange to happen. And Ms. Campbell had also mentioned about mentorship. Because that is also a very critical part of this connection and exchange. But in order for a mentee to receive the guidance of a mentor, one, there has to be trust, but they also have to have a heart to open to listen and to be guided. So it talks a lot about how to develop those connections and have that exchange. And then finally, we talk about change, which are those conditions that persons can be thankful and be grateful. So even though you may have your physical environment may not be the best, you can still be very happy and be very thankful. And we do see situations where persons are in a very nice environment, but they are depressed, they have suicidal thoughts. So we talk a lot about that. And then of course there's this connection between the heart. See, I think 2 minutes left, right? Yeah, it's 3 minutes left. So if you think about the connection between this heart that I spoke about and the body, it's the mind. The mind is like the filter that once these things comes up in our heart, then the mind then processes it. How do I then respond? And so it's so important to have that mindset or that mind education that can train the mind to not just to respond to our emotions, but able to think at a deeper level, also to be able to exercise that self-control. And that can improve a lot of the relationships that we're seeing within the classroom, but not just generally in the classroom, but relationships generally. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to skip these slides because of time, and I really want to share this with you. So, Dr. Semaj was talking about, when you have a house and you're going to renovate it and you start to try and fix it, then sometimes, especially if you say if Chichi, is there, so you just want to totally demolish it and start over. So one of the things in mind education that we talk about is having a blueprint for your life versus a blueprint for your mind. So it's okay to have a plan of how you want your life to go. But it's so critical that blueprint for your mind is like this footing, this foundation that your life will be built upon. and where mind education plays that role. So this is a picture of the Transamerica building that's located in San Francisco that was built in the 1960s. And as you know, in San Francisco, there it's prone to a lot of earthquakes. And this building was built with an extremely strong footing that allowed it to withstand earthquakes up to 7.1 without falling or without, you know, toppling over. And the beautiful thing when you compare a blueprint for a building versus a blueprint for someone's mind is that for a building you can only put band-aids on it if the footing is weak, right? You can only patch it or you're going to totally demolish the building. But for someone's mind, it can continue to be drafted, to adjust, and to change, right, of our minds and how we react, how we decide, and how we deal with things that happen in our lives. So to close, I just wanted to leave this, you know, this is, you know, which kind of captures or encapsulates, you know, what we talk about when we say about mind education and that, how important this is. We can create a plan for our lives, but without a sound blueprint for our minds, the best laid plans will buckle and fall. The mind's blueprint includes a drawing up a plan of how we'll react to the issues that spring up on what decisions we will make accordingly. And to sum up, I don't want to get on Ms. Campbell's rock side. This mind education was implemented in South Korea. In 1962, South Korea's gross domestic product, their GDP was $90 US. Now, when we gained independence, our GDP was much higher than that. And in terms of Jamaica, they suffered a lot of this vicious cycle of poverty. They came out of the war, the Korean War. They don't have any natural resources. However, at that time, in the 1960s, 1970s, mind education became a part of, you know, mind education started. And it's actually now a part of the curriculum in tertiary institutions. It's actually mandatory. And when you look at their GDP now, even though, of course, there are other factors for development and so on, but when you look at their GDP or their GDP, their per capita income rather, it's 30,000 US compared to, well, Jamaica, it's somewhere around 5,000 US in terms of per capita income. And their economy is in the top 6, right, of the world. And a lot of this had to do with mindset and the mindset of the people, you know, mindset of the parents, mindset of the students, you know, that have been imparted, mindsets of the leaders as well. And this program is now being implemented as well in various parts of Africa with success. So in summation, I think this is where the core of the problem is and also the solution. You know, being able to change how the minds or the mindset of our students or teachers or parents as well to have the sort of results that we would like to see and to have a brighter future for Jamaica. All right, thank you very much.
Giving power from the heart to overcome difficulties. Model of mind education with 4 dimensions: self-control, deep thinking, connection and exchange, and of course change. And the emphasis is that we must have a blueprint for the mind, even as we have it for our life, how we react and respond to situations, very important. I want to ask if there's a distinction between mind education and mindfulness. Could you share that distinction with us, please?
Yes. I think that the main difference is that we talk about this world of the heart. That is a little unique to our program, to mind education, in which we talk about this invisible vessel or this invisible container that's inside of us that directs our emotions, our feelings, our experiences. And that examination and how that impacts our behavior is the key difference, I would say, between mind education and mindfulness.
All right, thank you so very much. Please put your hands together again
Miss Natalie Robinson. We will hear some more about it because no doubt you would have been as intrigued as I am with this new discipline, mind education. My next presenter is a lovely lady that I met so many years ago and not seen her again for a long while. Don't know where she goes. Was hoping to see it in the profile I got to introduce her, but I didn't see that there, so I might have to go ask her plain and straight when we are done here. But Dr. Kate Dunkley is Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Liberal Arts at the Michael University College. With over 25 years teaching experience at the post-secondary and tertiary sector, Kay Dunkley is an experienced and effective educator, trainer, facilitator, and communicator with specialization in language education, which includes English, Spanish, and Japanese. Maybe that's where she went. And of course, teacher education. Dr. Dunkley believes that creating an environment that fosters creativity, teamwork, and a desire for continued self-improvement is important to the success of classes taught. In addition, she has paid keen interest in the development of systems to quality assure programs, particularly at the post-secondary level. She completed doctoral studies at the Northern Caribbean University with specialization in curriculum and instruction. Her dissertation explored the systems utilized for curriculum development and review in teacher training institutions. So she's right up there understanding the whole business of teacher education. This afternoon, still afternoon, Dr. Dunkley will give us some insights into how training has equipped current student teachers and other professionals to manage our current battleground teaching and learning environment. How training has equipped current student teachers and other professionals to manage our current teaching and learning environment. I was the one who slipped in the battleground into it. Please help me welcome Dr. Kay Dunkley.
Good afternoon. All right, so I want us to close our eyes for a bit. Young people, you're working with me here. I want you to imagine no cell phone, no microwave, TV that turned off by midnight, no 24-hour channels, radio that signed off, nobody spoke after midnight, 12:30. And then I want you to listen to I want you to open your eyes. That was 1998. I want you to recognize that in 1998 and since 1998, we have gone through a burst of change. When I say burst, I mean absolutely immeasurable change. Change in the landscape, change in technology, change in approaches, changes in research, changes in strategies, and teachers are expected to keep up. Not only keep up, but go ahead of the wave. I want you to recognize that Jamaica is a small dot. When I went to Japan, they let me know that the smallest prefecture in Japan is 47 times Jamaica. So Jamaica is not big. Added to that, Jamaica does not contribute action, teacher research. And so there's a lot of information out there, but not a lot of information specific to our classrooms and our contexts. But Jamaica like many emerging economies, has placed education at the center of legitimate movement and mobility. So teacher training institutions carry a lot of the burden. Because while these changes are happening, schools are expected to keep up, to run with it, and even run in front of the changes. Now imagine that was my context when I started as a teacher. I didn't compete with cell phones. We didn't have any. I didn't compete with computers. If you had one, it was a desktop and maybe one. I didn't compete with internet. I didn't compete with MTV. I didn't compete with games. I didn't compete with gaming technology. I didn't compete with those things. There was almost a dearth. There was a need for information. But now, information is everywhere, at fingertips. In fact, I have a cousin, and I love her dearly, but her job every weekend was to go home. This is some years ago now. She would come home on a weekend, and she would check the notes that the teacher gave her, and she would write questions for the teacher. She got expelled twice. Because I want you to recognize that during the change, the role of the teacher changed. The teacher is no longer expected to deliver information. The teacher is no longer expected to deliver information to parents. The teacher has now taken on another role. The catch is the system ready? Are the teachers ready? In 2009, the Richard Riley, Secretary of Education and the President of Bill Clinton, said, "We in education are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet." And I love that statement, because we are still caught in that space of trying to understand what the future looks like. We are still caught in the space of trying to understand who our students are, because the students, the millennials, are not from the 1970s. They're not the students of the 1980s. So, let us talk about computers and microelectronics. Within schools, and this is pre-COVID, they were being integrated, albeit slowly. A lot of educational change, a lot of educational research being smoothed in slowly. Overnight, COVID happened, and everything changed. We were being told from a long time, and I said long time because it's from the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, that the classrooms must change, the interventions must change, because we have to create a classroom where the students are active participants. And guess what? They have to be active participants because information is everywhere. So it's not about delivering information, it's about getting our students to understand the knowledge and then recognize how and when to use it. We have been challenged as teachers. We have been challenged as teacher trainers. We have been challenged because the new generation, the millennials, born between 1981 and 1996, are technologically savvy and they expect technology. They are not used to anywhere where there is no technology. And because of that, guess what? They are expecting some things to happen like this. They are expecting that when they say go, it is now. They have expectations that when you say, let's get something printed, that a printer will be available. They expect that they're using a stove to warm something up. Auntie, are you crazy? Auntie, what do you mean you turned off the router? Auntie, I'm not going outside to play. Outside is hot. This is the reality of our students. Now, who are we kidding? Teachers are not digital natives. We have a lot of teachers still afraid of technology. I will not call any names, but I have an aunt. And WhatsApp has definitely made her a little bit loopy, because she got a WhatsApp message from someone we don't know who, and she insisted that this is definitely a stalker or something. We're not sure what that something else is. And she has taken herself off of WhatsApp. She has removed herself from the family group. We cannot involve her in anything on WhatsApp, but we dare not leave her out. So I want you to understand that not all our teachers are technologically savvy. Some of us are still trying to understand and trying to live and catch up. I'm not saying this is all, but I'm saying some. And the students who they meet are going to give them a challenge. So, we are expected as teachers to prepare for life and for living the students who come through the doors. But it's a monumental shift. The industrial age that we understood, and I say we including myself, has now changed to the knowledge age, to the information age, to the product and services, to the services and products age. Meaning, once upon a time, people spoke about production of this, production of that, production of the other. Now we're talking about services. There are a lot of occupations that we still don't even understand as teachers. Do you know what a content creator does? Do you know what a social media manager does? You can't just say manage social media. I heard that one. But what I want you to understand is that it now expects that the teachers will have to be stretched. With that, and now, the idea here is that because our world has changed, and COVID pointed it out beautifully, we are boundaryless, we are borderless, we're expected to be globally connected. And guess what? We're expected to use our networks left, right, and center. The teacher's job now is to create authentic, real, social, cultural relationships, foster cooperative learning and social emotional competence. What does this mean? It means, therefore, that the schools and the teachers are supposed to create a space, environments for arguments, debates, collaboration, teamwork, cultivate divergent views, have an attitude, an atmosphere of respect and tolerance. And teacher training institutions, by extension, are expected to keep up with the trend, be ahead of the trend, and respond to these new requirements. I'm not saying that teacher training institutions have not kept up, because I've seen where there are many courses where there's cooperative learning integrated, collaboration. I see where there are a lot of projects, virtual, where colleges here have virtual relationships with other colleges. I see where there are a lot of conflict resolution courses being promoted. I see the attention to oral and written skills instead of just written exams. You have a lot of possibilities for alternative ways. There are a lot of ways for ethical discussions and decision making. But part of my question, and this is something that has bothered me, is one, like Dr. Semaj, where are the parents? And two, the teacher training space cannot solve everything. Because again, if we're fixing at the teacher training space, we may meet students who have other things, come with other baggage, come with things that we can't even put into words. And so even though there is a push on for global awareness, financial awareness, economic awareness, business and entrepreneurial skills, civics, health literacy, environmental literacy, to name a few, courses related to online learning, courses related to blended instruction, courses related to looking at how to integrate our culture, music, drama into teaching. At the end of the day, one of the questions resounds: where is the self-care for teachers? Where is the self-care for the teachers who are also parents? The teachers who are also individuals in the world? Because it takes a lot of energy to be in the classroom, to do all of this, but where is that other part? Where is that part? Because I'm going to say, when you looked in the news during COVID, you saw teachers dying. They were dying. And I think it raised a question for me to say, didn't they stop? Didn't they slow down? And the more than likely answer is no. They were out there pushing, trying to involve, trying to get everybody active, trying to get everybody in, the classroom to maintain itself. But at the same time, where is the other side? And there's also a question. So we have the teachers who may be left to manage themselves. The idea of post-COVID, pre-COVID, or should I say not pre-COVID? Pre-COVID, mobile telephones were a no-no at school. During COVID, please take out your smartphones. Post-COVID, we still have schools that say no phones at school. So the message, the mixed signal, what are we doing? What are we really trying to achieve? Because we are saying to the teachers that they must embrace technology, they must keep up with the social equities, but what are the foundations and what are the things that we are doing? I like Dr. Samad when he says, lick it down. Maybe we need to review the policies. Maybe we need to take them out and look at where we are, what is the context now. Because COVID has exacerbated many social inequities, many social problems. And I'm not going to be limiting it here to students, because students and teachers, our first speaker indicated that those things, those microaggressions, those silences that trigger are also real for teachers and students. And so I wanted to close with suggestions. Counseling. COVID as trauma was real. Some teachers are still trying to figure out what just happened. Teacher education is being challenged and has been challenged. And areas for improvement: social and emotional learning, conflict management, ethics. We see chopper culture happening in Jamaica. It's growing. They're creating their own industry. That's the ethical and moral fabric of our space being challenged. Reflection, evaluation, accountability. Again, linking back to what Natalie said, that mindset. Because if we are going to really take on the future and not only respond to it, but try to be ahead of the curve, we're going to have to review what we mean and look at learning in a deeper way if we're going to create the society that we say we want in the 2030 vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. K. Boundless and borderless. Teachers ought to create a classroom where students born into speed and immediacy are active participants, yet teachers are not digital natives. So should they not be trained to be? We need policies to be reviewed. To what end? And she suggested continued counseling for teachers, because some of them still wondering what hit them with COVID But swine flu is coming, so getting another hit again. And really, Dr. Dunkley was making a case for the teacher, even as Dr. Smudge made a case for putting parents first. I'm not sure she's saying putting the teachers first, but she thinks that the teacher comes up against a wall of challenges which are seemingly insurmountable, but they really are not. So we need now to explore some ways of knocking down that wall or helping the teachers or empowering that. But I'm going to throw that back at her. Isn't that the job of the teacher educator? Isn't that the role of the MICO and the role of Shortwood Teachers College and what's the other one down at Manchester Church and the other one at Sam Sharp? Yes. And Monique. Well, Monique is no longer a teacher training college, right? Isn't that the role of the teacher training institutions? Isn't that the role of, don't get up yet, I'm not done with you. Isn't that the role of the teacher training institutions? Who should really, how do you see the counseling working? And why are we competing with technology instead of manipulating the technology to enhance teaching and learning? I'm coming back to you with those questions as I'm throwing them out there. Is it the students who have changed, or is it this sociocultural context that has changed, the sociocultural context that has nurtured them and has changed or shaped what you now consider the new student? Have students really changed, or is it society that has changed? What has happened there? And Natalie, you don't mind if I call you by your first names. Natalie, Evangelica, are you still there? And Leah Kim, you can weigh in any of those questions. So that's the presentations from all our panelists, and I'm going to be opening the floor for, why do people call it a floor? I'm going to be opening the space for questions and discussions, observations, and interventions. I'm going to rely heavily on my techie-savvy teachers in training there to pull the questions from Zoom or from YouTube for me, or to facilitate the Zoom persons to answer. You may have to monitor the YouTube because they can only write their questions. So let me start with Kay. And although I'm starting with Kay, you all can join in the discussion, right? And I'm starting with the more complex one. Is it the students who have changed, or is it the sociocultural context in which they have been nurtured that has changed and has shaped the new student? What do you think? I know one of you can jump in. Oh, do we have cordless mics? We don't have cordless mics, so they could sit and respond. So they don't have to be getting up to come to this mic every time. Yeah, that one seemed to have a long leader cable there and can stretch to everybody. Go ahead. Thank you. Speak directly into it that those on Zoom can hear you and those on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're hearing you now.
I would say both, and I outlined. Turn it on. Yes, it's on. Is better now? That's better. Press on. Yes. Woohoo! Yes. All right. I would say both because this.
You're going to get a feedback because of mine. So let me turn off mine. Where's the thing to turn it off here? So. Oh.
Okay. This one's on now. Okay, I would say both. One, because they have been born into expecting what is normal. So they're expecting the microwave, they're expecting the technology, they're expecting the integration, they're expecting a lot of things that did not necessarily exist before, and those things compete in some instances with the teacher and the classroom. And because of that, the student's expectation is different, and the context of the expectation is, of the teaching and learning space is different.
Okay, anybody else wants to, yeah?
The predictions,
Smash.
are that within the next probably 10, 20 years, probably half tertiary institutions will be out of business. So back to my model that the national policy on education and the role of parent, because we can't get around parent. Now, I gave a presentation at JTA in the middle of COVID, said that we're looking for this master teacher. The master teacher of the future will be a product of both Teachers College and Edna Manley. Because the teacher has to have training in drama, in stagecraft, how to, in multimedia. Now, one of my daughter Isis was at when she went to high school at Lawrenceville School in Princeton. When you went to visit that school, the art class, the teacher was in a room like this. We're talking about back in the 90s, with screens all around. So whatever artist you're talking about, you're looking at all the artists' work and so on and things. It's a total multimedia experience. So the evidence is suggesting that, look, why I decided to move, to just give up the university. And first of all, the first thing I built a sound system, because I can talk to more people in a mic, with a sound system, in a dance, and I can in the classroom. Then when I went to media, on a radio show, I can talk to 200,000 people at one time. So the classroom, the evidence is suggesting that many of the educational institutions at the tertiary level will be almost like social club. You go there for club activity. But the bulk of the work you'll be doing will be some multimedia. And, by the way, you're going to have about 5 or so providers globally. Google, Facebook, Amazon, they already have the delivery technique and the capability of doing it, right? So all the core content of maths and English and so on, but then now we have to develop our own social studies and history because they won't know anything about that. So that the rest of those things, we just like how we can, it's amazing, because I live between the US and Jamaica, and what I love about, I see a book and I order the book. Where? What? Where is that? No, I want the book. 2 days? The next day the book is delivered. So we can't do that too, but I'm saying that the idea of products can be delivered literally within 24 hours, you order something. And then any education, as it stands now, anything you wish to learn, you can learn it on Google for free. I had a helper who couldn't iron a shirt properly. But all day long, she on YouTube, I listen to music. I said, I just borrow her phone and said, how to iron a white shirt. I said, Doc, them have this on YouTube too. I'm going to put it on top of the iron board. I said, learn to iron white shirt. All right? So I'm saying that's another part we have to, 3/4 of tertiary institutions that now exist will serve no purpose 15, 20 years from now.
You say
Jamaica has, look, I remember, I love when you talk about shh. I remember when I used to, in the early 90s, I used to be doing workshops at, say, Alpart and so on, and rushing back to you to teach a class in the evening. I used to see some of the same students there. But you realize there are probably over 70 degree granting entities in Jamaica now. And many of them is just a 1 degree or a 2 degrees and so on in conjunction with some foreign, you have something called correspondence course, boys and girls. Where now, the amount of Jamaicans now who can stay in St. Elizabeth and earn a degree without coming to Kingston or going to Mandeville but they do so online. So the technology has made it a whole lot of different. So it put more pressure on a new type of teacher, as I said, with some training at the Manley, right?
I mean, deep thinking, deep diving
Right.
training at Edmanley, yes. Because we have it here. But I want to probe some further because the issue of relevance has come up. And although you say teacher training institution will not have any relevance 10 to 15 years down the line, isn't this part of what you had suggested before when you said we need to redesign the system? Is it that not it's necessary for them to reinvent themselves?
No, but the whole system,
to make them relevant.
No, but the whole system, because remember that, so much of it is going to be outsourced now. We can, again, the maths and the English, and so the core component issue, it'd be cheaper to just download it. Much cheaper. But we can't, the civics, the social studies, the geography of the region, the history, those things we have to develop. And we can't, it's not a chalk and talk. It has to be just as slick and as comfortable and as smooth as what Google and Amazon and will be developing. But we need national policy. We need national policy to take us that direction. So I have this master teacher. We still need these master teachers. But a master teacher will be a hybrid.
Yes.
Right?
More a facilitator.
A hybrid of, literally.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so do we have any questions among us? Audrey, you have a question? Oh, well, maybe I should say it another way. Do we have any questions, any comments, any observations, any interventions? Go ahead, Audrey.
So that this has been coming a long time. And what we need is but technology has been coming to us from the industrial age. Maybe our parents would say, well, what is this and so on, that been coming to us. But persons were overstressed that the United States and all those places are employing all their teachers who are experienced. But we have some young people sitting in front of us just now. They have their computers. They are opening up, they are putting us on two persons on the platform. They are coming out of colleges. So most times as an educator, when persons say, I have to get an experienced teacher. I want to see I have to get a teacher who is coming, who is hungry, who has something to prove, and that's a young person. And Dr. K kind of confirmed it to say they are coming with other innovations. Who is a media, whatever, and who is a podcaster, and they are creating all kinds of professions or industry out of what we would look at to say, what is that? Persons in our age. So I am not worried about where we are going. I am worried, like Dr. Samaj to say, we need the parents in this thing so that they can groom, because sometimes when they come, they have no ethics. We teach and they go home and they go in their community because they are the parts of their community. When you do a sample, when you do a survey, you take parts, and they are parts of their community, representation of their community, to say, these are who we are. People who cause, parents who this, parents who that. So we need to start as well.
Okay, so not worried about where we're going, but how we're getting there. Any other observation? Let me hear from Churton first, and then Ray.
I wanted to touch base, much of what you said, so I'll just ask them, how much of this, what's happening, the relationship, the falling rate, condition and so on, how much of it is mirrored by the society, the community?
All of it. Because look, if you're talking about, first of all, the parents are not part of the, most parents. If you look at certain schools that are doing very well, you could always look at the relationship, the percent of parents who are actively involved. When you look at some schools, parents' activity as such in terms of augmenting teachers' salary, that's one level of activity we're talking about. But we're talking about more basic. I mean, I have seen it all. There's one school I was visiting out in the West, and the schoolyard, the grass is almost tall like me. And the teacher said, the principal said she don't really have no budget and thing. But we said, but hold on, what the workers put them there? Is them one picnic I get cut up to the grass? No, if you not pay them, huh? Right? So we're talking about, folks, COVID showed up a lot of this, you know. When we say we have online learning, we never had nothing. Half of the students had no internet access, or the capacity was just too low. When I did a couple of teacher training courses, programs, and when I asked the teachers, what were you using? Teachers were trying to teach class using them smartphone. When I do a workshop, I have 2 computers and 3 big screens in front of me, because the amount of material you're trying to integrate. You teach a class of 50 people online with one smartphone? That's not possible. And then now, with the children going to school, quote unquote, from home, that means that who is a homeroom teacher? The parent. But no, most time it's the helper. And if there's no helper, or there's nobody, or the TV's on in the background, or the child would just log on and turn off the video and go about their business. There's a bad habit that has crept in Jamaica. Whenever I'm doing any kind of workshop and I say, buddy, come on, and all I see some names in front of me, I say, no, I don't work so, right? I would not have a meeting and people have a bag over them head, right? So I want to see who we're talking to. So that we had a dry run of it during COVID, and we failed miserable, because it's only the children who were in homes where parents took responsibility for their education. Those children got education was continuing for them. The other parents who were following the goat kid model, they're going to pick their morning time and hope them come home safe in the evening. Nothing happened. So many of our children are 2, 3, 4 years behind. And the socialization that took over now in terms of the street hustling and so on, many have not come back to school. So that what we have done, we have augmented the criminal element. The role of socialization is to help to move a child from being, ignorant to becoming productive. That's the whole socialization process, both home and school. If that fails, the child becomes destructive. And we're seeing that now. When I took a program to the Minister of Education back in the early 90s to deal with the boys who are in the departure lounge in school, I was told we don't have a budget for that. I said, if you don't find a budget for that, you're going to transfer that problem from Ministry of Education to Ministry of Justice, plus GCT.
I mean, national security.
Justice and national security.
Okay. I'm going to pause you there so I can get in some more observations and some questions. And I think we have some persons on Zoom who would like to. So let's get 2 from Zoom. Angelica, please go ahead.
Yes, I am speaking now. I hope you are hearing me.
Okay, while we're waiting for Angelica, Ray, you wanted to make an observation, but they're not hearing you unless you come here. So I'm going to ask you if you could come down and use the mic.
Am I being
you have to
heard
speak
now?
in the mic so the other persons on YouTube and Zoom can hear you. Is Angelica ready now?
Am I being heard?
Okay. I like the, yeah,
Am I being heard? I am not hearing at all. Okay, I hope I'm being heard now. If I should continue, I'm saying I have listened to all that has been said, and I recognize that there are a number of factors to be considered. So looking at the conduciveness or how to have the classroom more conducive for the learners or the teaching learning context, it is not just one thing, but primarily at the root of it, there must be system changes because we cannot do the same things that we always do and expect different results. The fact is that there's a radical change in how the students are going to be learning. It's different from before, although we want them to have similar content, but we have students now, as one of our presentation indicated, or our presenter indicated, that technology is playing a major role. But that is not the whole answer. But in terms of that, we will have to look into even our resources because there is not a one-day change to our resources. So in the meantime, how can we deal with it? And I think the mindset in terms of what was presented and the fact that the psychosocial environment is crucial right now to the children's emotions, to how they perceive things, their worldview. Is education important to them? Some of these things, I think that's where we probably need to start because as Dr. Samaj mentioned, that the changes will have to be done for us to get what we...
Let me hear from you, Nori.
good afternoon. The fundamental issue that have been raised by Dr. Samaj is the importance of parenting, the attitude of parent and the values. And to my mind, that makes the world of the difference to the education system. And until we get to that core value, that core point, we're going to have a challenge. I've listened to you at the JTA, I've listened to you, and the same thing comes over. Parent involvement, and there's a correlation between parent involvement in a child's education and the success ratio. And I think we as an educator, as an education system, have missed the boat. Because we're talking about failing schools, we are not looking at the resources that have been placed in those schools. I've just done a quick analysis. Today's primary school, you can check it out. The ministry is now paying light bill and water, but they are giving the school $1.50 or $1.60 US per year, per child per year, for the primary school, $2,500, just raised recently from $500. At the high school level, it's about $1,000 US per year. And it's only those most schools, whether the secondary or the primary school, with a small school, there's no way that that $1.50 US can get that school going unless the teachers going to give the additional support. And you cannot, and we're talking about failing students, failing school, and you're blaming the primary school, blaming the other system. We're not looking at the resources and the development in the system to move it forward.
Okay, Ray, so you think it's a problem with resources. And remember, our focus is on primarily how we need to enhance or to make the teaching and learning environment more conducive to learning. Let's not lose our focus here. Dr. Samaj has to leave, And I have one question that I want to ask him before he goes. And I'm going back to some of the things you think that we need the system to do, or you think you need the system to do in order to put parents at the center. Bear in mind that there's a national parent support commission existing to function accordingly. What is it? You said national policies. What else should the policy makers do to ensure that parents are at the center, or there's much more emphasis on parents, or empowering parents?
It's almost, you have to start from scratch, because our whole system is built around literally keeping parents ignorant. That don't ask too much question. Just come vote every 5 years. That's all I want you to do. Somebody have to start reminding parents, listen, look, when I have a chance to talk to parents or to people in general, I have a chance to say some hard things that you are not ready to be a parent until you're able to pay rent. That's where the word parent come from. You can pay rent, right? So we need to start making some hard things, make people understand what it means. The whole notion of what it means to raise a child. The society, we don't talk about those kind of things anymore. Boy, me get 6 youth, me get... those kind of questions, and politicians are not going to raise those kind of questions because it will make people upset and don't come vote for them. So that every one of us who care about this country have to start raising those kind of issues. We have children raising children. Parenting is the single most important human activity. Nothing more important than that. So the whole notion of literally the society has to reground itself around that. The socialization and the care of our young children. There's a book I'm really providing soon, talk about stage 4 of 4 stages of life. The first stage is from birth to like the end of primary school. You realize when Jamaican used to just have that alone, you know, people used to finish primary schools and educate for life, you know, because the integration back then, we're talking back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, between like a one-room primary school, but school and home was integrated, and so on. And what children came out of those primary school with. But now we really have to, almost as a national thing, parenting is the single most important activity. And we have to hold parents accountable and responsible for their children.
Thank you so very much. I want to ask Natalie. Natalie, how can we make mind education? Remember, I told you that Dr. Smart has to leave. Thank you so very much. Sure. Come, Mr. Givens. Hold a bit there. Mr. Givens is going to make a presentation to you.
Dr. Simaj, on behalf of the MOSA, I would like to express gratitude for being here today. You know, something that you mentioned about parents being involved. I remember reading something about the black people in America. After they came out of slavery, there was this talk about they are not educated enough to decide which school their children should go to. But there was this economist who objected, and he said, black people know the importance of education. So even though they are not educated, they want their children to still go to the best schools. So that's something that I really appreciate and agree with. And I hope this brings a smile and you enjoy the conference.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And thank you to Dr. Smaj for staying with us so long. We just have about 6 minutes to go. I'm going to take another Zoom question. My question, Natalie, you can think about it while I take the other Zoom question. How do you see Mind Education working to create a more, an environment more conducive to learning? In Zoom question? No, go ahead.
I think that that Mind Education can be incorporated in different ways. Firstly, definitely from a policy standpoint, and definitely in terms of including it in the curriculum of teacher training institutions such as Michael is key. I mean, that has been one of the successes that countries that have implemented Mind Education into the curriculum. It has been a partnership between the Ministry of Education and even with the government, and it's something that transcends or passes, even if the political party that's in power changes. It's at a policy level, so it has that continuity. And also, not even just at the training institutions, but also getting involved more with the parents in the schools. Because as we have been hearing, that the key component or the key thing for success is to change the mind and the mindset and the approach of our parents. And that is very important. So there are different ways, but clearly irrespective of the changes in technology and the transformation that we're seeing, something that never changes is having that strong, resilient mind that can overcome difficulties and can allow a student to achieve their full potential.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dunkley, how do you see technology, how can technology help to create a space that is more conducive to learning in the immediate teaching and learning environment?
I think there has to be a reconfiguration of what is expected in the class. I think in some instances the electronic or the online space has become another lecture room. We have to go into using the cooperative learning, the social and emotional learning. We have to begin to really use the space as a tool, not as the product, but as a tool. And so the teachers have to be prepared to really be innovative and creative, to activate the students, because it's a time where there's a lot of isolation, and the technology in and of itself can be isolating because you're just in your own world doing your own thing. So the teachers have to be creative and get the students connected.
Okay, so we keep hearing that the teachers have to be creative, but Kay hasn't told me how she, as a teacher educator, would make the teachers creative. Angelica, what role do you see your association, your president for the Guidance Counselors Association Education, what role do you see that association playing in creating an empowering space for the parents? Angelica? Can you open the mic for Angelica?
As an association, one of the things we are doing, even for this year, we are empowering our counselors to better understand the delivery of the program, the counseling program, in the context that we want to partner with. Oh, okay, the parent. Okay, thank you for explaining, because I heard it another way. Very good. We would be just continuing what we have been doing, because we have always been having training for parents, not just in November when we have Parent Month. Different situations would have really have us having parents coming together and training them how to parent better, the kind of method, the kind of parenting skills, and so forth and so on. So what we are doing actually is trying to get more out, but we find that there are many parents who are I would say they were teenage parents. And those are the ones that are hard to come by because they have the children have become their peers instead of a parent-child relationship. They're having peers relationship. So when you bring them to help them to understand better parenting skill, we find they shy away. And most of the parents who are coming out are those who are already converted, but we have been stepping up. Not only that, the Ministry of Education through the Guidance Counseling Department or unit this year and even right now, they're having this parenting drive to bring parents out in order to help them to better understand their responsibility and role in parenting and in the school system in educating their children. So the guidance counselors are mandated to be doing all of this. No, the training. So we are on it and we will continue to be the drivers on it.
Question for Mrs. Robinson.
Use that mic, Givens. Yes.
Mind transformation. I'm really intrigued by that topic. And I'm thinking that it begins with thinking about how we think or why we think the way we think. And I'm saying, if we are to bring this to the classroom, we need to experience it. So my question is, how do we approach that metacognition?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Because as a mind education specialist, I had to put myself in those situations as well. I had to experience, all the different facets of self-control and so on, and so it's not about initially teaching someone how to do it, but we have to actually, as specialists, be the ones that are in that position so that we can impart that knowledge. So actually it's true. So we have to be mind educated ourselves before we can transfer that knowledge and have that, impart that to students. So you are correct.
Okay, therefore, understanding the learner and understanding the context in which the learner learns, we need to be able to manipulate the technology and understand how it impacts students' behavior. Traumatic experiences that affect students' behavior, we need to understand those, especially within the context or within a post-COVID. I'm wrapping up now, I'm not taking any more questions. Within a post-COVID context. And of critical importance, students' seeming lack of interest and sense of direction. We need to redirect that. How we are going to do it seems to be another debate. And also of critical importance, effective communication. That was the challenge from Angelica Dalrymple. And then we hear that the education system is fatally flawed and that we have to demonstrate the political will to fix the system, to stop tinkering with it, to redesign the system from early childhood to tertiary, and to make parents or the empowerment of parents a critical priority. And Natalie Robinson is introducing mind education, quite different from mindfulness, but it's a system, a model in which we give power from the heart to overcome difficulties. And that model has 4 dimensions: self-control, deep thinking, connection and exchange, and change. And what is important for us to do is to have a blueprint for the mind, even as we have one for our lives. And Kay thinks that the teachers are up against a wall, not insurmountable, but there are lots of things that the teacher education curriculum ought to have in order to empower our teachers to respond to the current situation existing in the classroom. That's basically the sum total of our panel discussion this evening. Mr. Ray Howell likes to have the last word, and I'm going to give it to him in 10 seconds. Because I don't want to hear the end of this for the next 5 years of my life.
So, quickly, there are pros and cons on artificial intelligence, your concept and your perspective on the chat GPT.
Oh, it wasn't a last word, it was a question.
I'll have to ask permission to answer.
Go ahead. In 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it can be an enabler, definitely, to education, but I also think it has some drawbacks because I think as well it limits maybe creativity and deep thinking. So there are pros and cons. It depends on how it's being used.
And finally, the master teacher of the 21st century and beyond must come to the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts before he has any kind of relevance. Thank you so very much for participating in this panel discussion. I'm handing back over to Dr. Prescott.
We have come to the end of the program, but with such a beautiful evening, such a feast of information, and maybe a change in mindset towards certain thoughts, we want to show our appreciation to our presenters this evening, and I'm going to ask individuals to come and do presentations to first our moderator, followed by Dr. Dunkley. So for our moderator, we are going to ask Miss Campbell, your time. And I'm going to step back. Miss Cavell Williams to do the presentation.
Good evening, colleagues. Ms. Campbell, on behalf of the Michael University College Alumni Association, we would like to express our gratitude for your exceptional work during our event. Your expertise and communication skills helped to create a productive atmosphere that was instrumental in making this event a success. Again, thank you for your dedication and commitment to making this event a success, and we appreciate your willingness to lend your time and expertise to us.
AJ Mattis, present to Miss Dr. Dunkley.
Good evening, everyone. All right, Dr. K. Dunkley, I want to take the time to express our sincerest gratitude for your participation as a presenter in this evening's discussion. Your insights and expertise on the topic were truly invaluable, and we learned so much from your thoughtful contribution. Your presentation was informative and provided fresh perspective on the subject matter. Your willingness to share with us today was greatly appreciated.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we ask Natalie, and you will be presented by Natoya Duncan. Grant, sorry.
Good evening again, everyone. To Miss Natalie Robinson, on behalf of MOSA and all of us here at the Michael University College, I must say thank you so much for taking the time out to come and be a part of this panel discussion. Your presentation was very profound. I've learned a lot, and I do intend to carry on what I've learned, hoping to make some change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, the closing acknowledgement. Now, the main points have been ably summed up by our moderator. So therefore, I just want to thank everyone online and also in the audience for being such a wonderful audience this evening. I was told that about 52 persons were online this evening. Thank you very much. On the Zoom, another 26 would have been on YouTube. Well, the last time I checked. Oh, yes, YouTube. And on YouTube. So how many? Okay. So maybe we're looking close to 100, eh? Yeah. So, food for thought, excellent presentations, and as far as I am concerned, I do believe that mind education is the way to go. We have to stop and we have to start training ourselves to think when to go forward, when to stop and absorb what is happening around us. Am I right? Okay. We also want to thank the Jamaica Teachers Association for the collaborating with MOSA in exploring the different strategies that may be used to mitigate challenges in the education system, and also for suggesting that can be used as a way forward. I am sure educators in the audience may add something new to what they have learned this evening. We want to thank Dr. Pinnock and who had a previous engagement and he had to leave. And wow, to Mr. Lakim Simaj, renowned psychologist, who rightly stated that a reconstruction in education is a start to fix the education system. And we have to start by fixing our mind. Also, empowerment of parents is so, so very necessary. To Mrs. Angelisa Dalrymple for shedding light on the importance of the affective domain. That affective domain can be linked to the heart that Natalie spoke to. To Dr. Kate Dunkley, who is a witness to the success that we are having. We are having some measure of success in this school. We want to say thank you. To Mrs. Joan Hutchinson for advice in respect of protocol, and for all individuals who have worked behind the scenes. And I must mention Mrs. Slitch, librarian, who also was working behind the scenes. To the technical directors again who work with JTA, who was responsible for the Zoom platform, and also for streaming the event so that individuals in the diaspora could also be a part of this event. To the administrators at the Michael University for ensuring that we had a lovely setting here this evening within this lecture theater, and also to our second vice president who saw it fit to ensure that we had a little drink and a little snack afterwards. So I just want everyone to know that there is refreshment after this. And finally, we always say finally, but he's not the least. We must say thanks to our God, and we need to give him all the praise for presiding over this very, very meaningful event, which is, I should say, which is so relevant at this time in our education system. We thank you all, and we wish you all a very good night. Thank you.